So let's think now about the next piece of the agenda, which is deciding when to order and how much to order. And we'll go back to the simplest sawtooth. So we have the time plot. Here is day, and here is the on-hand inventory, and here is the safety stock. And we'll imagine that we've been coming along in our sawtooth, and think about now what happens during the period of the sawtooth. There'll be a moment, let's call it right here, which is the time you have your planning meeting. So here's the planning meeting, and what you have to do is decide to make a forecast and see when you're expecting to hit the safety stock. So at this point you would use your forecasting software to predict out the future demand, which you can easily translate into the future safety stock, because if each demand that comes in, you're going to have a drop in the inventory. So the forecast, this dotted line, would come out and hit the safety stock at some future time. So we'll call that where you hit the safety stock. So at that point, if we're treating safety stock as the minimum below which we don't want to go, we have to go back and make sure a replenishment comes in to move us back above safety stock. So when we hit the safety stock, for that replenishment to come in, we have to order far enough ahead of time that those three components can be available to us to assemble into the finished good. So we will walk back by a lead time to another time here, which is when we would order the components. So we predict when we'll hit the safety stock, we walk back to find when we should order, which would be right here. And at that point, our inventory will have hit this level. We're going to expect a further drop in the inventory during the time when we're waiting for the replenishment. So we have this much inventory to make up. So this gap is how much we should order. This gap between here and the safety stock. So that when the lead time is expired, we'll be back up here and we can continue our sawtooth. So the lead time is working back from the hitting time, which gives us the ordering time, and then we know how much we should order. And actually it's the ERP system that is triggering the order and calling for the components. So that's the way the sawtooth sustains itself over time. It starts with a forward planning meeting, works off a forecast, and then that calculation, knowing the lead time and knowing where the safety stock is, tells us how much we should order, and it perpetuates the sawtooth. Now, if you're very alert, you will notice that I drew this to put us back to a smaller gap above the safety stock than we had previously. And there's a subtlety here that actually happened accidentally in the way I was drawing on the board, but it's an interesting point. The slope of this line is indicating something about the level of demand. And if you look closely, the period from here to here was so much and so much, and now we have a longer period and a flatter slope. That indicates that I've drawn a scenario where the demand has started to decrease, that the demand is lower. And that's why we have the forecast. The forecast would be presumably tracking the evolution of demand and taking that into account. It would see the downward trend, and it would have its projection out is flatter than these previous steeper lines. So this interval until we hit, this was the interval before, it was about the same here, and all of a sudden this one is longer. That means that we're reacting through a good forecast to the drop in demand, and that also means we don't have to carry as much stock to keep ourselves above the safety stock because it's dropping slower. So if you caught the fact that the peaks used to be here and now it's here, give yourself an A for alertness.